So now we mentioned user interface, and what do we have in user interface? We have 4 user interface that we need to know. First one, graphical user interface. Second one, command line interface, dialog-based user interface, and gesture-based user interface. So whenever we have an operating system, the operating system will provide you with the user interface or how you can interact with the hardware and software. Are we good? So whenever we say user interface, it's a way of the interaction. One of them, the popular one, is graphical user interface. And why we call it graphical user interface? It's built around graphic. An example for this, your smartphone operating system user interfaces such as the iOS or the Android, and using the computer, the Windows is one of the major popular one. Why? Windows is based around graphic. That means whenever you open a Windows, what you have? Windows. You can open up Windows and close Windows. What else do we have? Menus. If, for example, you right click, what you get? You get some kind of menus where you can select from. What else we have? Icons. If I'd like to open something, I will just see the icon, and the icon will contain graphic. I will double click on the icon and I will be able to select using what? Small images. And pointing devices or pointers. Example, mouse. Nowadays we have post WIMP, we call it. The graphical user interface called post WIMP, meaning we are using Windows, we are using icons, menus, and pointing devices. However, the pointing devices we are using is your hand instead of using a mouse. And this is possible. Why? Because nowadays we can have touch screens. So whenever you have a touch screen, that means instead of using the mouse to click on the screen, you can click using your fingers. And then you can use pinching in, pinching out for zooming in and zooming out. You can double tap with 2 fingers, for example, to provide a way of accessing menus. Are we good? So graphical user interface can be WIMP, Windows, icons, menus, and pointing device, or can be post WIMP. Whenever we say post WIMP, that means the pointing device is a touch screen and the pointing device will be your hand instead of having a mouse, for example. Are we good? Advantages of such user interface. Why it's very popular, used now in smartphones, why we use it now in the computer. Why? First of all, no need to learn any complicated commands. Second one, very easy to use. Why very easy to use? Graphic. You look at the image and you understand what should be done. If you would like to play a game, you will find the icon of the game, the image of the game. You double click and the game will launch. Very good. Another one, you can use pointing devices to click and select icons and menus, such as using the mouse. What is the disadvantage? The main one is it will take up some memory. Meaning, whenever you have a computer, we mentioned any computer will have a RAM, isn't it? And a RAM is a random access memory that will hold whatever you are currently opening. So whenever you launch this kind of operating system, whenever you have a graphical user interface in your operating system, you will find that this part of the user interface will have to go and be stored where? Temporary in the RAM. That means part of the RAM will be reserved for this user interface, for these icons you see, for these animations, for these colors. Are we good? All of them will be stored where? Temporary in the RAM. Are we good? And the processor will be taking a chunk of its processing speed to make sure that everything appears as it should. So that means the RAM and the processor will be working with your user interface. Why? Because most of the user interface contain animations and contain pictures and color that need to be always refreshed. So you will need some kind of memory, or we call it resources. These resources are, we take part of the RAM and part of the processor speed to do what? To maintain this user interface. Very good so far. The second, the second one requires complex operating system, meaning to build such a user interface, the operating system must be very complicated and very efficient. That's why all the time you will find that they are rolling out updates, updates, updates. What they do in the updates, they're trying to make your user interface even better and better. No lag. You get it? No freezing, fast scrolling, fast selection, more options, multitasking. You get the point. So the operating system must be very complicated and well programmed to be able to have such a graphical user interface. The last but not least disadvantage, you don't have full control. You don't have full control. What do we mean by this? For example, if I right click on this screen, this is the options I get. These are the options I get, as you can see. Can I add to these options? No. Can I remove from these options? No. So you get what you get. Very good? You get what you get. If you would like any kind of an extra feature, you will have to wait for them to add that feature for the next update. Are we good? So we don't have full control. We're not allowed to do whatever we want in the operating system. What else? Another user interface, we call it what? Command line interface. And this is the opposite of graphical user interface. As you can see here, command line interface is just a black screen where whenever you would like to do something, what do? You type commands. You don't have graphic, you don't have icons, you don't have nothing to help you. So you will find that whenever we are dealing with this one needs you to do what? To learn command. That means it's complicated or not, complex or not complex. Whenever you need to learn this kind of command, and not only learning command, you have to learn them with the correct spelling. If you type the command with the wrong spelling, you will find that it will not run. Very good. These are disadvantages. Yes, and no visual aids, meaning there are no icons where they can help you identify what to do or what is this. You have to memorize the command. Yes. So if you are using this kind of user interface, you will find that you will have to learn commands. If you'd like to do something and you don't remember the command, that's it. You will not be able to do it. Are we good? So sometimes whenever you are running this kind of user interface, you will have to memorize so many commands. Yes? Now what's the advantage of this user interface? First of all, the most important one is freedom. You have full control of your computer. You can do whatever you like. You are not constrained with a couple of options. Are we good? Whenever you know the command, you can execute. So you have full control. And the second one, what will be displayed on the screen? Just a black screen with white text. Does it require large RAM? Does it require processing power? No. That's why you will find what? You have full control and the least resources are needed. The least resources are needed. What do you mean by least resources? The least RAM preserved for the user interface. The least processing power wasted for making sure that this user interface is running smoothly. Are we good? So this is the opposite of graphical user interface. Does not require high RAM, does not require a high processing speed. Are we good? And of course, once you have full control, that means you can alter the setting as you wish, change anything as you like. Yes? And you have the full control over the computer. So which one is better? Each one has advantages and disadvantages. If you would like full control of your computer, faster speed, less resources such as RAM and processing power, you use which one? CLI. If you'd like easy of access, convenient, pointing devices, no need to learn anything, you go for GUI. However, you need to know that the GUI will take part of your RAM and will take part of your processing power to make sure that these shiny icons and these animations always are smooth and not lagging. Are we good so far? Nowadays, you will find other user interface are becoming very popular. One of them, we call it dialogue-based user interface. And this user interface requires only voice command. This user interface will be done through only voice commands. That means instead of typing using a keyboard or selecting using a mouse, what you will do? You will use your voice. That's why we call it what? A dialogue user interface. Are we good? So advantages of this dialogue user interface. First advantage, if you have a disability, you have problems in your hand, for example, you cannot type, you cannot move a mouse for any reason. Now this one is good for you. Why? Because you can order using your voice. Another one, you don't need a keyboard and a mouse. You can instruct using your voice. Okay? And it can be more secure. It can be programmed to obey certain voices only. So it will remember your voice. If someone else tries to order this operating system user interface, the user interface will not respond. Why? This is not the voice stored. Very good. So it has more security if you link it only to your voice. Very good. And it can be used to identify, of course, a person. Whenever you talk, if they recognize your voice, they will identify you even by name. We get? What about the disadvantages? It's unreliable. Sometimes, whenever you are actually ordering the system might not recognize what you need to do. So you'll have to keep repeating, especially if there is a noise around you. If there is some kind of distraction and noises and distortion around you, the system might not recognize what you are trying to say. Very good. So it's not always responsive. You'll find out this kind of user interfaces are not always responsive. What else? Background noise affected and complicated to set up. It's very complicated to set up. And as the system gets more complicated, you will find that the system can understand more commands. So complicated systems, expensive ones, they will find that they can recognize many commands. Simple systems and cheap systems, they recognize a couple of commands only. Very good? So you have at the end of the day a limited number of commands that the system can respond to. And you should talk with the system in a certain way. So you have to have some kind of training. Whenever you are ordering the system, there are certain commands that you know. You should know how to spell them and how to order this system to respond to you. Are we good? So these kind of systems are popular when you will find it. Used where? Modern cars and even smart houses. What else? Last but not least, gesture-based user interface. What's the difference? Here, instead of using a keyboard or mouse or using the voice, you will use part of your body. You can use your hand by waving. You can use your head. You get it? So you use some kind of gestures and the system will interact with this kind of gestures. Are we good? Where we use them normally? Smart TV. For example, if you'd like to lower the volume, you can wave with your hand, specific wave, and then the volume will be lower. And the opposite is true. Very good. And in video games and in entertainments, some of the video games can have these kind of cameras, built-in cameras, where whenever you wave, the person inside the game, for example, will do the same. These kind of games are very popular for kids nowadays. Any kind of natural interface. You are just waving. You are just using, for example, hand gesture. And no need for training. No need to train how to type commands, for example. There are no commands to type. What about the disadvantages? It might pick up unintentional hand. For example, you would like, yes, to scratch your head, and they think that you would like to increase the volume, and then the volume will be increased. Next, you need what? A camera or a sensor, because the system needs this kind of a camera to detect the movements. So it's more expensive or not? It is more expensive. You need a camera. What else? There are a number of movements that are acceptable for this kind of system. For example, the system will show you that they can only use a couple of hand gesture, let's say, to interact with the system. Yes. So limited number of gestures are accepted by the system. Just like the dialogue-based interface, limited number of voice command you can say. Here, limited number of gestures you can use. Are we good? And these are the main four user interfaces. So to recap, what we have: GUI, CLI, gesture, and the last one is dialogue based or voice. Dialogue or voice. Very good. Which is the simplest one? Simplest ones? Simplest ones. The gesture and the dialogue. These are the simplest one. However, normally the commands accepted are few. Voice commands or gesture commands. You get it? Again? What? Dialogue? What about it? Dialogue based interface. Dialogue means what? You command by voice. You get it? Dialogue means command by voice. Dialogue or voice interface. So you have what? Few commands. What about GUI? Advantage? Easy to learn, and disadvantage? Takes resources, spaces in the RAM and processing power, and you don't have full control. You don't have full control on the system. In which one you have a full control? CLI, you have full control of the operation. You can do whatever you like as long as you remember the command in the correct spelling. Then you use CLI. That's why whenever you see companies like banks and big companies, they are using CLI in certain applications, such as database application, customer-related data applications. Why? They have full controls and speed. Why speed? Does not require that RAM, does not require that processing power. Easy to fetch using commands instead of clicking and clicking and clicking. You get my point? Are we good? So CLI, even though it's used by expert, even though it's very hard and complex, however, you have full control of the computer and minimum wasted resources such as RAM and processing power. And remember, in the exam, I might ask you for certain examples or usage where you use them. GUI, we use it where? For an office and home use, isn't it? CLI by experts like in banks. Gesture based can be used where? In cars and video game. Cars and video game. Dialogue based also in where? Cars, and nowadays where? In mobile phones or smart houses. So whenever you are looking at this kind of user interface, you don't have just to remember their advantages, disadvantages, and features. You need to remember where they are used. In the test, you will get the question in where we use and why. In the car, for example, why would I prefer a dialogue-based interface in the car? Because I need the driver to pay attention and the hand should be on the wheel all the time. So how can the driver lower the voice, increase the voice of the radio, switch on or switch off the AC without moving the hand? Using dialogue-based interface. That's why you will find that it's safer to use dialogue-based interface where? In cars, for example, or at home, where you can order the system to do something and at the same time you are busy with your hand doing something else. So instead of using your hand as an input device, you use what? Your voice. Same goes for the gesture, isn't it? Instead of using your voice or using a keyboard and mouse, you can just gesture and the user interface will react to whatever you are gesturing for. Are we good? Simple so far? Understood all the user interfaces? So that's why we have different ones. That's why we have different user interfaces. Now we need to know the types of computers now. The main computer you will see around you all the time is desktop, and we call it desktop or personal computer. Why this computer is popular? Because it has a separate keyboard and a separate mouse and a separate monitor. So you can have big monitor, big keyboard, good mouse, and then you can do hours of work. Are we good? If we compare it with what? With laptop, for example, later. Because in the laptop, everything is compact. The keyboard and the screen, everything in a small size. So if you are working for hours, I would like a bigger screen, a bigger keyboard, or a better pointing device. It's better to use which one? The desktop, isn't it? We prefer the desktop for this. So advantage, separate components. Yes, another advantage, it can easily be upgraded. For example, if suddenly I would like more RAM, I can open the case and add more RAM. If I find that it gets hot all the time, I can add another or an extra fan. You can actually upgrade it. Unlike what? Unlike the laptop. The laptop is compact. See the keyboard, a tracking pad is there to replace the mouse. You get it? And a small screen normally. So the keyboard is not intentionally designed for long hours of works. However, the keyboard has an advantage, the main advantage that we prefer it sometimes over a desktop. And the main advantage is portability. You can take it around with you. You can take it from one place to another. If you are traveling or if you would like to work remotely, you can always take your laptop and put it in your bag and go. Can you do this with a desktop? Have you seen someone taking the desktop to his friend? You cannot. Why? Big screen, big keyboard, so many cables. However, you will find that the laptop is very compact. That's why we call it a very compact personal computer. Are we good? So, first advantage of the laptop, portability. You can take it around. Second advantage, it can work on batteries. So, if you don't have power supply, you can still use your laptop for a certain of hours. Very good. So lighter in weight, more portable, can carry it around and works on batteries. Disadvantage, smaller in size, awkward location for the tracker pad here. The keyboard is not that convenient for long hours. You get it? The batteries does not last for a long time, cannot be upgraded. Cannot be mostly upgraded. Mostly cannot be upgraded. Very good. You stuck with what you have there. Only a couple of components you can actually swap. Very good. What if we compare now laptop with the most popular one for portability? Tablets. Advantage of tablets. Even more portable. Even why? Lighter, smaller, not heavy. You get it? And they get rid of the physical keyboard. Now you have only on screen keyboard and using your hand. So it becomes smaller in terms of the size. So why would we prefer it over laptop? More portable, smaller in size. Normally the battery might last even longer, more convenient. And some of the tablet you can actually have a SIM card injected. So some of the tablet you can use 4G and 5G. That means you can use the tablet as a tablet and to make calls and receives calls. It can have a slot for a SIM card. Yes? Disadvantages? No physical keyboard. That means typing will be painful. If you are typing a long, for example, document. We prefer normally physical keyboards. Very good. So it's not intended to be used for long hours of typings. And normally we have certain application only that can run. It's not a full operating system, by the way, meaning you cannot find all the features of Windows in, for example, a tablet computer. Normally the tablet has its own operating system with certain functionalities and services. It's not intended to have everything, not like laptops and desktop. Are we good? And it can be stolen even easier. Why? Smaller in size. What about if we compare it with a smartphone? Why smartphone is nowadays popular? Pocket size, meaning personal now. Everyone can have a smartphone and on your pocket. Unlike everyone if he is having a tablet, you'll find the tablet will be carried on the hand all the time. However, the smartphone you can put it where? In your pocket. You get it? So it has the most portability. It's very portable, small in size. You get? But the disadvantage, screen is so small, not every applications can be convenience using the smartphone. That's why whenever you are working and you go to an office, they will never give you a smartphone to do your work from. They will give you what? Either a laptop or a desktop. Why? Bigger screen, keyboard and mouse separate, so you can work for hours. Smartphone is normally intended for emails, social medias, WhatsApp, you get it? Sending text messages and making phone calls. That's it. But for productivity, you need a laptop or a desktop. Are we good? Advantages. So what do we mean by a phablet? A phablet is bigger than a smartphone and smaller than a tablet. You get it? The tablets normally until inch. Tablets are 10 inches. Okay. Smartphone are 6 inches. Whenever I have a smartphone that is 8 inches, this one is not a tablet size and it's not a smartphone size. So I will call this what? A phablet. Very good. So a phablet, whenever you would like to have a device in between, a smaller one and a bigger one. Are we good? This is what we call a phablet. So you'll have what? Bigger screen than smartphone. However, smaller screen than a tablet. Very good. And it's still more portable than a tablet and less portable than a smartphone. But if you'd like a smartphone with a bigger screen for your convenience, then you can, instead of getting a normal smartphone, you can get a phablet smartphone. Very good. Next, and the last section in your chapter, we have what we call emerging technologies. And by emerging technologies, we mean new, advanced technologies that are here. Example, the popular one nowadays is artificial intelligence. That means we would like the machine to simulate the decision making of human being. We would like the machine to become smarter. We would like the machine to analyze data and make decisions such as humans who are always trying to do this. Are we good? So this is what we call intelligence. However, it's not a human intelligence. That's why we call it artificial intelligence. That means the intelligence of the machines to simulate our intelligence. Are we good? This is very important. Whenever they ask you for a definition, artificial intelligence is simulating what? So the machine can make decision just like decision made by. Where we use it nowadays, you'll find we use it in smartphone where recognizing a person face. Now you have in a smartphone where you can unlock your device using your face. And they can be done in surveillance cameras, by the way, now. Whenever they're looking for a person, you can check the cameras on the screens, and the screens will check each and every face and compare it with the needed face to detect whether the person is where exactly now. You get it? We call it image processing. We call it image processing, and this is the future. They can actually track you by cameras. Yes. So whenever I would like to track you, I can connect to all the cameras everywhere in the city, put your face, and ask the camera to find this person now, or within 24 hours. Where is this person? So they will find you either in a restaurant, going into a place, going into a bank, sitting in a park. They will check and identify your face, and then they will mention where you have been seen last and at what time. Very good. So face recognition is very Is very futuristic. Next, what we have? The ability to operate machine by itself. Nowadays, you have autopilot in airplanes. You have Tesla cars, if you see now. Yes, automobiles, they autopilot. The car itself will drive itself. It will take you from A to B by using sensors and cameras. So the car can make decisions when to speed up, when to slow down, if there is a congestion, if there are people crossing the street. The car will make this decision. You just sit there and relax. You don't have to drive it. However, these kind of cars are considered very expensive. Why expensive? They have sensors that can detect different environment factors. They have cameras everywhere. They have to make decisions. That means they have a very fast and responsive microprocessor and RAM. You get my point? Why? They have to make decisions in fraction of seconds. Otherwise, a disaster might happen. So you'll find nowadays trains, airplanes, and cars can be run by computers or run by machine instead of human being. Advantages? Normally, the machines are more accurate than human. The accuracy of the machine is 100%, and the machine can work 24 hours. However, if you are driving a plane, then you might get, after a while, you might get tired and then sleep, for example, or take a small nap. And then a disaster will happen, isn't it? The machine, they never take naps. They never get tired. They always work 24 hours. They are always accurate and have very high precision. So that's why we prefer them whenever you would like. Accuracy and productivity. Long hours of working without stop. Disadvantages? Expensive. And if there is a malfunction, if there is one of the sensors or one of the cameras having a problem, the machine will not work properly. So you have to make sure all the sensors, for example, or all the cameras or all the programming is 100% checked before the machine can start working. Otherwise, abnormal output might occur or happen. Are we good? And now machine can analyze and predict the outcome of the future. For example, and this will be covered in chapter 6, you can't ask the machine questions, and the machine, based on knowledge, they can provide you with some kind of advices, prediction, or possibilities or probabilities. We call it an expert system. You ask the machine for advices. You ask the machine for recommendations. You ask the machine for solution for problems. The machine will be checking the database and then answer, advise, recommend for you. Yes? You'll find nowadays heavily used on the computer. Nowadays, the computers can actually solve your problem. You have heard of it, isn't it? You have, for example, for research and education, you have ChatGPT. You know it? Software, you can ask the software even to draw, to do anything for you, it will do it. Just input. You get it? So this is what we call artificial intelligence. Very good so far. So you need to look at the advantages we mentioned and disadvantages. What about the poor laborers, the poor humans? They will lose their jobs. And now you'll find that in factories and in many areas, less and less number of humans are being employed. More and more numbers of machines are replacing their jobs. So humans are getting jobless. You get it? Not only jobless, they are losing, because later if this machine cannot do the job, you won't find a person who can do it, because people need training. You get it? So whenever you are replacing the machine, if something wrong happens, you cannot go back and do it manual, unfortunately. Why? The skills are not there anymore. And we call it over dependency on the technology. Now we depend on the technology more than previously. Even now, if you notice in the math, for example, you will find that if I ask you 2 multiplied by 10, you might open up your calculator. We depend on this kind of over-dependent. This is problem. You should depend on them to make your life easier. However, you should not depend on them to the point where you become dumb. You get it? Very good. And they have high costs. Why have costs? Sensors, cameras everywhere. high programming, complicated system, programmers, you need to pay them. Yes, so this is initial cost is very high. Very good. And what about humans? They become lazy more than they are. You get it? Becomes even more lazy. And last but not least for this chapter is what we can call an extended reality. An extended reality, this is referring between our real world and the virtual or the digital world. Okay? We have a couple of them. Look to understand. First of all, if you play games, we have something called VR. You heard of it? Yes? Stand for virtual reality. Where instead of playing a game on a normal screen, what do? You wear these kind of glasses and you will be immersed in a digital world. You get it? Everywhere you look, only digital world, only virtual world. And you will have some kind of controllers where you can control the person inside this digital or virtual world. Are we good? Advantage, it will feel more real. Disadvantage, what about the disadvantage? You will be disconnected from the real world. For example, if you are running from an enemy, you might hit the wall, isn't it? Because you will forget that you are in your room. Yes, or you might fall over a furniture. So they find that even though this is very attractive for education, for entertainment, for gaming, for training, it can be used. However, it will disconnect you from the real world. So they said, what about we do or create another one called augmented reality, where we will have mix between what? Between the real and so I will wear this kind of headset or this kind of glasses with screens. I will see the digital world and I can still see the real world. And this is very important. Why? If you would like to mix the real world and the virtual. For example, I need to go from A to B. I can wear these glasses and move on the screen. On the street, I will see the buildings and the road, isn't it? However, I can see digital information as well. For example, on the corner, I will see, let's say, a dot there saying restaurant. You get it? If I look to the left side, for example, I might see some kind of a digital information about the building. This is a hospital. If I'd like to go from A to B, it might tell me go straight. So I will see a green line in front of me. You get it? At the end, I will find a curved line saying go to the right. So you will find that whenever you have this kind of information in augmented reality, as you can see here, you will see the building and you can see what information about the building, just like whenever you are opening the map app on your phone. You get it? To see your locations and utilities around you, hospitals around you, restaurants around you, banks around you. You get it? So now what will happen? Both of them will be mixed. You will see the real world and then you will see digital information related to whatever you are seeing in the real world. That's why we call it what? Augmented reality. So it's a mix between the real and the virtual. Very good. The more advanced one, we call it what? The most advanced one. This is even better than augmented reality. Why it's better? There is what we can call what? An interaction with both the real and the virtual. You can actually interact with both. For example, let me give you an example. If you are in a big empty room and you would like to put furniture, you'd like to see how the room will look like if I add furniture. So the room is there, however, it's empty. So using the digital world, I need, for example, 4 chairs and a table. It will put what in front of you? 4 chairs and a table. So suddenly on the room, they will appear 4 chairs and a table. You can even change their colors according to the wall to see whether they fit or not. What if you have to put some kind of flowers on the table? You will ask to put a flower on the table. Now, in this kind of mixed reality, whenever you put the flower on the table, For example, on this virtual table, the flower will be on the table exactly, isn't it? You get it? On the table exactly. Let's say one of my friend brought a physical table, brought a real table, and put it next to this table. And I would like also to see what will happen if I put the flower on the real table. If we are not using this kind of mixed reality, the flower will be overlapping with the table, on front of it, above it. You get it? However, if we are using the real one, what will happen? The system will detect the physical table dimension and will put the flower like it's a real flower. Very good. So you will feel that this is a real table and this is real flowers on the tables using the dimensions of the flowers. Even if you put the flower at the edge of the table, what will happen? And leave it there, it might even fall. You get the point. Very good. So that means whenever the digital information appears here, the digital information will appear in respective to the real world information. So you will have seamless interaction between both of them. Everything will look real for you. Where we use it, last but not least, training, education, games, sport, and constructions. You will find it used everywhere. And this is the end of chapter 1.